Hi, everyone. Following up on our recent pod about returning to the movies after the success of two semi-independent films, Backrooms and Obsession, we are returning today to talk about a bona fide, unadulterated, eagerly anticipated Hollywood blockbuster that's driving moviegoers to theaters like ancient Greeks storming the city of Troy. That's right. We're talking about The Odyssey, and this is Boomer Has It. I'm Jim Jalamas in Brooklyn.
I'm JB Miller in London. So you saw this film, pretty much when it came out last weekend. I just saw it this afternoon. My impression of it is fresh in my mind. Your impression of it has had more time to percolate. But we thought we would start out talking about Christopher Nolan's career, the director, because he's truly one of the few name directors we have who can open a film by his name, not just the cast, or even more so than the cast. You can say that maybe about Steven Spielberg in the old days. You could say that about Kubrick, but I think he's the one that I mean, and Spielberg's name hasn't been that hasn't sparked the box office in the last 5 or 6 years, but Nolan has. So, what can we say about Christopher Nolan's career up to now? He's a British
I
director.
wonder if we should start at the beginning, I mean, with Memento, but what I can say is, anecdotally, I find that he's highly revered among a certain class of theater goers, and I'm not exactly sure how to break it down, but I in my day-to-day life, people talk about Christopher Nolan like people talked about Steven Spielberg at one time.
And
What
why is that? Why do you think Nolan is the one that sparked people's imagination? His films maybe are unlike anyone else's films, so perhaps that's one of the reasons. They're very ambitious. There's like he paints on a broad canvas. He's like one of those great sort of history painters from the 19th century that was the widescreen epic work of its time. But he paints on a he directs, he makes films big. He makes big films, and this is a big film. But he started small. Actually, Following was his first film, which was a very low budget film, which I think took him maybe a year to shoot on weekends, and then Memento, which is very how would you define that? I really like it. That's a creative. It's a sort of
I wanna call it, yeah, you might call it a genre-bending film, but you also might call it a structure-bending film, right? Films are written in a three-act structure and in a linear direction, but this one goes backwards, starting
yeah.
with the opening scene where we see a hood played by Joey Pantaleone, and a bullet in reverse firing from the gun going into the gun.
God, I'd forgotten that. It's not so long ago.
If that didn't dazzle theater goers in independent movie houses at the time, I don't know what would've.
That was a great announcement from I actually was at Sundance in 2001, and he was there with Memento. That was his first breakout hit, and I remember going to this small event where there were 4 or 5 new directors standing on a little stage, and he was one of them, and we had no idea he was the one that was gonna be, 25 years later, really the most celebrated probably the most celebrated filmmaker of his generation. That's probably fair just for the size of his films and the uniqueness of his films. He's the local British boy who made good, who I think lives in America, maybe has a home in New Zealand or something, never carries or doesn't have a phone or an email address, but I think always has his passport in case he needs to jump on a plane when World War III breaks out. Something like that. He's
Well, he's in New Zealand, he's in a safe spot.
Yes, yeah, that's not a bad place to be when, Armageddon happens, but, not everyone is so lucky to have, tri-nationality and a private jet waiting for them. But anyway, be that as it may, so it's nothing to do with his work. He's an interesting guy, interesting director. Yeah.
I you know, I'm at a disadvantage here because I can't talk about his past work other than Memento, um, and having walked out of Oppenheimer because I found it
Oh,
dull and uninspiring and
God.
something else about him that we ought to talk about, which is his and what I did see Inception. I did see
Oh,
Inception.
okay, Inception. Okay, that was a big one. What did you think of that?
It was a big one, and it was, it was a little sort of like, it was all a dream. Um, that sort of that kind of conceit bugs me a lot, and great performances, great actors, like Oppenheimer, like Memento. No, Memento had a laugh. These films, they don't have laughs. They're
They're pretty
very
humorous. Yeah.
serious.
Yeah,
They're
he's a
somber
serious guy,
films.
serious filmmaker. Yes.
But there was one laugh, and this may be the one laugh we attribute to the whole portfolio of Christopher Nolan. It's when the famous amnesiac wakes up in the middle of being chased, and he
Oh,
says, I'm chasing someone, aren't I? Oh, wait, someone's chasing me."
that's good. That's a good joke.
It's a
I mean,
great joke.
no one's made that joke before. So that's I'll give him that one. Absolutely. And so anyway, yeah, we all know Nolan's very successful. He's ambitious. He surprises us. But this one was so anticipated that when the casting was announced, it stirred a controversy in the predictable places that is on the right wing. Have a friend who hasn't seen the Odyssey who's still railing about the casting. It's colorblind casting, and people are upset about a black actress playing the woman who's supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world. How is that possible? I mean, it's just sort of almost was that pretty much racism on its sleeve, or was that, I didn't even know how to argue that. I didn't even know how to place that in cultural context.
Well, I
Or,
mean,
and there are no Greek actors in it, and there are complaints, right?
a
Am I
lot of
remembering?
complaints, and it's all these are sort of tired, hackneyed complaints from the usual suspects, right? Colorblind casting, which has been with us how long? How long has colorblind casting been with
Yeah,
us
a while.
in in sort of commercial formats?
Yeah,
I'm talking about TV and movies, not experimental theater or even, Shakespeare festivals where routinely directors mess around with the casting. I mean, come on.
yeah.
Bridgerton, running
More
for how long? How many zillions of viewers? What a success.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it might be more common on stage than it is in film so far. I don't know. It's certainly been going on in London, in Britain for a while, and I think the embracing of colorblind casting is partly generational. I know my children have no problem with it whatsoever. They're growing up watching colorblind casting. They go to a lot of theater, and they don't have any issue with it whatsoever. So I think it's partly generational. I think if it obscures the author's intent, then it can be problematic. What I found problematic about the controversy was people were treating this as if this was a real story. It's a fable. It involves, a cyclops and monsters, and it was the cyclops was not played by an actual one-eyed person. It just seems the more you look into this controversy, the more absurd it is. Just right. It's just maybe we don't need to discuss it any further, but it's noted. We've noted it. But I will also note that the controversy seemed to dissipate completely once the film opened. All the people who criticized it about the colorblind cast, they hadn't seen the film. Once the film opened, I think the controversy would have continued if the film had not been received well. But it's gotten fantastic reviews. It's enormous. It's the biggest non-animated film opening of the year. It had a $264 million worldwide opening last weekend, and it's been fully embraced. And so I think no more controversy about that, as far as I can see. What do you think its impact's going to be before we talk about it critically? what impact do you think it's gonna have? The success of it. If it wasn't successful, it wouldn't have any impact except that no one would make any more Greek drama or, adaptations. But it was successful, is successful. What do you think's gonna happen?
Well, if anything, it's signaling that the Hollywood blockbuster's back. It can be done with the right casting, the right director, the right cinematographer, when done right, and this has all the makings of a blockbuster.
But
5 locations, gigantic budget.
yeah, but I think bigger than that, it's a blockbuster that's not a franchise. It's a
Not
it's a
yet.
not yes. What else
Odyssey.
are they gonna do? The Iliad maybe next, but I don't know. It's Odyssey Part 2. It's not, Batman. It's not Marvel Universe or DC property IP. It's not Bond. It's not, although it has Jason Bourne in it. It's not a Bourne film.
Mm.
It's its own thing, and that is what Christopher Nolan did early in his career. He was making Batman films. But starting about 15 years ago, he started making
Mhm.
unique drama, unique films, and I think the impact maybe will be producers less frightened of non-franchise material. Is that fair?
That's an interesting point, although not a franchise, but let's not forget that the Odyssey is a genre, a lost genre called sword and sandal.
That's true. That's true.
And
It's also
just to
IP, known IP as well. But yeah,
Yeah, and as a follow-on, I happened to watch the great Ray Harryhausen film, Jason and the Argonauts, the
oh,
next night, which was just completely enjoyable. It's a film that keeps on giving. It has
that's
everything.
in the 50s.
Monsters, it has sports competition between the Argonauts who wanna join. It has a femme fatale and Medea doing a hoochie coochie dance. It's got it all.
Where did that sounds like fun. I've seen clips of it, and it had, probably pretty advanced special effects for its time, which would have been what, the early 50s, mid 50s?
It was, 19 it might have been 1963.
Oh, okay. It was, for some people, the special effects would look pretty clunky in that, but looks like a fun film in any case. Um, and who knows if the special effects in what we're watching now will seem dated in 10 or 20 years. I think the music soundtracks are gonna get much more dated before the visual effects will. That's my
Well,
prediction.
actually, one note about the special effects is, um, supposedly didn't use any until it's converted to digital, right? The AI people sort of take over, but the Cyclops, for example, was a puppet, and if you look at some behind the scene
I didn't
video.
know that.
Yeah, with the puppet, and talk about interesting casting. The
Mm.
voice and face of the Cyclops was Bill Irwin, the theater.
Oh, I was wondering. I saw that Bill Irwin was in it, and I thought, "Who did he play?" He
Well, just
played
for
Cyclops,
audiences know, Irwin is a celebrated film actor. He's
and he's
on
a clown,
TV, and he
famously.
was also, Mr. Noodle, Mr.
Oh, I
Noodle's
didn't know.
brother and Mrs.
Right.
Noodle's brother in Sesame Street.
I didn't know that. I remember
Now you
him
know.
from a Broadway, it was called Full Moon, and he was a silent sort of clown on stage, and he was brilliant. He was brilliant, and that was a very, old-fashioned kind of approach. It wasn't, fancy. It was just his own sort of clown skills. Yeah, all right. Well, that impresses me. That in itself impresses me. The effects that were mostly non-digital. Um, let's get to our critical appraisal. Let's hear. What did you think of it?
Um I'm afraid to say anything negative because my wife and child loved it so much. Um, I got swept up in the excitement. Um, to me, any kind of dialogue that's occurring with swarms of people about a 3 millennial old text is a victory, a major victory. I loved the casting. I thought it was fantastic. I thought Matt Damon always does great work. His his chemistry with, um, Anne Hathaway was was very well. It was evident to see that they had great chemistry. Tom Holland, I thought, was great. The story what I really loved was, the structure of the story, how it was told in varying perspectives, looking from the past to the present. Some of the stories told through his amnesiac relationship with Calypso, on a beach. Um, some of the stories told from the point of view of Agamemnon, who's dead, who rises out of the sand of Hades. Some of the stories told from Anne Hathaway's point of view. It's very good. It's very the structure is very good. Well, um, I won't quibble yet. Should I quibble now or later?
No, that we can quibble later. I mean, you wanna know what I thought of it? I'll shock you. I really liked it. I I really like I'm not a Christopher Nolan fan, and I
Hold
was
on, I need to put a cold compress on my head. I'll
I
be
was
right back.
I really liked it. It was very clear filmmaking to me, and that's not how I always feel about Christopher Nolan. I find him a confusing director whose recent work I just never understand what's going on and the different layers of time plays with time. This was clear, and this is I don't know I've never read the Odyssey. I know some of its stories, but I've never I've never really engaged with it like a lot of people have. So, but I had no problems following it. I thought I was not bored for an instant. I thought structurally it was really impressive, which is everything you said. I thought the cast was great. The cast makes total sense when you watch it, with one caveat I would have, that the one actor I thought was miscast was Charlize Theron because she just looked too modern to me. She looked too she looked too 21st century blonde with her cheekbones and her plucked eyebrows uh, and maybe she's never had any work done, but she just didn't look um, timeless. Like all the other actors looked kind of timeless to me. That's why I like them so much. Elliot Page, Samantha Morton as Cersei was fantastic.
Fantastic.
Matthew
She was fantastic.
just so creepy, and so Matthew Damon was just perfectly cast. I didn't have a problem with, anyone in it. Just Charlize Theron just sort of took me out of the frame a little bit because she just didn't I don't know. What did you think of Charlize Theron? She's done
I think you're right. I was looking at her face and her blonde locks against the blue sky and the
yeah.
beach, and I kind of thought I have to agree with you. I think you put your finger on it. She doesn't look like, someone in that time.
Yeah, that
Even
was
though
it.
she had ragged clothes on, her
Yeah.
her beach wear was of a time, but
I don't know why they I don't know quite why she was cast in it, but everyone else, it was just great. It would just fit their characters perfectly. I agree with you about the chemistry between, Matt Damon and, what's her name who played, Penelope? Uh,
Anne Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway, thank you. She was great. Her look was great, and you really felt that they were a couple and that they missed each other. Lupita Nyong'o, who played Helen and Clytemnestra, I just found it a little confusing because she's playing, sisters, and
Twins. They were
what?
twins. They were twins. Twin
Twins, yeah,
sisters.
twin sisters, yeah, that's sisters, yeah, twins. So, you could that would explain why they look the same, but, that always throws me a little if I'm trying to figure out who I'm watching. But she was great. Everyone was really good in it. And it do you know what I mean when I say it's clear filmmaking? Does that make any sense to you? Does that
When you say
or
clear filmmaking, there's no ambiguity about the storyline, how
yeah.
it's being shared, And I agree. I love that, and, many film goers have memories of reading the Odyssey, either in an English class or a classics course, or maybe even a comic book or earlier depictions. So you're constantly making comparisons to see how the story is gonna be told, and I agree, it was very successful. I think Matt Zoller Seitz at rogerebert.com called called the script a map. It wasn't a linear script, it was laid out in a nonlinear way like a map does.
Yeah, man, that's something.
Map guides you, and I thought that was a really
Yeah.
cool observation.
Yeah, but Nolan can does that, not always to as effectively as he did this time. He plays with time in his films, but this seemed clear. Also, he was very talky, and it didn't feel overly talky. There's a lot of it didn't feel like exposition, it felt like dialogue, to me, and it was visually impressive enough that the dialogue just didn't stop the momentum of the film. Do you know what I mean? I mean, you have to almost think about how talky it is because you may not realize it when you're watching it because it's not boring, for a second. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I there is talk in it, and it it's a good way to convey information. The casting was so good, whoever was talking, I felt interested in hearing them.
Yeah.
Whether it was
Yeah.
Menelaus or even Antinous played by Robert Pattinson. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
I wanted
He's
to
a good
listen.
villain. He's a good villain. There's something creepy about him, and he was good. Yeah, so there was a wonderful momentum to it, and it was. Personally, I don't know if I need to see it again, but I enjoyed it. Maybe I'd see it again if to be to be even clearer about the story because I've already gone through it once. I don't know. It's
Well,
different. Yeah.
both of
Well,
us saw it in standard format. So, what do you think would be an appreciable difference if we saw it in not only IMAX, but 70 millimeter? And there's a lot to hear about the IMAX cameras and what a burden they were on the filmmaking because they're big and they're noisy. And at some points, the actors had to use mirrors. They had to rig mirrors so the actors could see each other in dialogue because the camera is so enormous.
I
That's
mean
quite
that.
a sacrifice or that's a burden to put on the crew. I wonder
Yeah.
I wonder how it adds to the viewing experience.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, you'll find out. You'll be able to report back to us soon because you're going to try to see it in IMAX. I didn't. It's playing in IMAX here, maybe one or two places. I thought it was a surprisingly intimate film in the sense of actors playing off each other. You didn't feel like they were acting off mirrors, or that there was a huge camera on the beach. There are small moments in it that feel very emotionally affecting. So I think it's a terrific film. I can't
What were the
recommend.
moments that you thought were emotional?
Um, oh gosh, there's just so many. I mean, whenever, whenever Odysseus says, just want to go home. I don't want to go home. You really felt it from him. These trials he was put through,
Well, and,
and
yeah, and go on. Sorry,
yeah, no, and Elliot Page, I thought was really well cast. There's something uh,
heartbreaking too.
heartbreaking about him. And when Odysseus is inside the Trojan horse and he can hear what's going on outside. Um, oh, I don't want to give away too much. The Trojan horse scene, which we've probably seen in other films or depicted in illustrations, I thought was unique. It was really well done. It wasn't the usual horse on wheels. You see the Trojans haul it from the beach over rollers into their their city, and it's a hard road, and I thought that w and the poor guys inside, that was really well done.
I also that was a kind of a ominous moment to me when they finally erected the Trojan horse late at night. The city's lit by flames, by torch, and you see it open up and you see someone drop out of it. It felt ominous. And
Yeah.
and I think maybe because, the great what makes the Odyssey great, as what makes great biblical stories so compelling, are the flaws of the characters. And
Mm.
so Nolan has been building up the complexity of Odysseus, that he's broken some rules. He's made a lot of mistakes. And so not only are we seeing the fall of Troy by Odysseus dropping out of on a rope out of this gift, breaking the rule of Zeus of hospitality and gift giving.
Mm.
It's not the ruin of Troy, but also the ruin of this man that will cost him 20 years of his life.
Yeah, and that's yeah, that's shown, explained sort of towards the end.
Throughout,
Again,
throughout.
through yeah, that's part
Right.
of the structure of the film. I didn't get a sense when we first see the attack, the taking of Troy, that it was a sort of soul destroying moment as much as I felt that was explained later on. Anyway, I thought it was bravura filmmaking and clear filmmaking. I really and the rare Christopher Nolan film that I heartily recommend. I thought was just brilliant.
Well, that was counterintuitive.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't that I was expecting to dislike it, but I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. So
Well,
that's
you know
when
what? It's sort of like I'm happy to be counterintuitive about a film when, when it gets rave reviews from every outlet in the world. But I was surprised. I kept reading reviews, advanced reviews, and how adoring they were of the film. Kind of, it just it stumped me. I couldn't imagine. It made me nervous about my reaction to it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of other films that are gonna be in the running for Oscars and critical, welcoming. I don't know. I'm trying to remember what else has come out this year. I like Project Hail Mary a lot. I think we both like that. But this is a film on a different kind of film on a different level.
Just a word to the controversy again. It was interesting. So the New York Times really made hay with this in running up to the release of the film. They had classicists, they had translators, movie reviewers, cultural critics, and it was a lot of fun looking at their coverage of it. But A.O. Scott called the woke objection. He called it a preemptive ideological strike against the film. And I years ago, I read an amazing profile of a classicist whose name is Danel Padilla Peralta.
Wow.
He's, not white. He was raised homeless, and while homeless, I think he's of Dominican descent, and a lot of people in the Dominican Republic and even Puerto Rico, you'll hear them, they have names from the classics, people named Anibal or um, Leonida. And it's sort of this, it's the legend sort of survives in different parts of the world. And he grew up in the libraries of homeless shelters. He became a classicist. He studied, I think he's at Princeton right now. It might have been Yale, Oxford, where he learned Greek and Latin. And he's been someone questioning why the classics, why? It's kind of an interesting question. It's because we all grew up with a classics department in our colleges and our high schools. Why does it exist as a standalone discipline? And as colleges face budgetary problems, in the last 10 years, they've broken down their classic departments. They've broken them down into English and history, which makes sense. but his objection is that the reason the classics exist is is to praise whiteness, at least in 2020, in the 2020s. And I won't go on too much longer, but
Oh, I don't wanna
the classics came during the Enlightenment, where intellectual thinkers in Europe wanted to say to the church, "Sorry, you're not in charge. Humans have the ability to reason, and look at the classics. It proves it."
yeah, well,
It carried us through the formation of the United States. Um,
yeah, I don't wanna go down too much of a rabbit hole here. I will just say though that colorblind casting doesn't always work for me as much as it should. Um, and I would separate um, sort of Greek drama and Shakespeare, which I have no problems at all with colorblind casting. But when if you do like a Jane Austen or Jane Austen-esque drama with colorblind casting, I trip over that because I just there, you know, there were it doesn't read true to me, and it's not honest for that period, and that's probably more my fault than the filmmaker's fault. But I just it takes me out of it. Um, there was still slavery in the 18th century, and not in Britain necessarily, but there weren't people of color who were British aristocracy or upper class. So I just I don't I trip over it the way I think my children probably don't. I think it's different if it's further away and it's more abstract. But that the society depicted is more abstract to us. Does that make you may have a different reaction than I do to that?
I think it's fair.
They're or something,
I think it's fair. I mean, and I think you have to attribute some of that to our generation. We're used to seeing things appear a certain way, and now we're talking about things like gender and race really being human projections. They're sort of human inventions, and that's, I think, how your children and my child and a lot of people who like Christopher Nolan, that's how they view the world right now. It's not they don't hesitate, and
Yeah, well, then it's
there's
different.
something for boomers to learn from that, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree, and as I said, it's my fault more than but to me, it's easier with a Greek fable or Shakespearean fable. But once the closer we get to knowing more about how society was operated in like the 18th century, say, I find I just trip over it, and that's probably my failing. But no problem with it whatsoever in the Odyssey. I mean, it works. It works to its favor in the Odyssey, I think, without being in your face about it. It's more in people who object to it. It's very much in their faces, I guess. Otherwise, it just feels much more organic, to use an annoying word, I guess, or natural. Is that fair?
Just don't use the word propulsive again.
Yes, well, all right.
No, I
I'll
would
try
say it was propulsive. The film was
I'll
propulsive.
try I'll try to keep that word under wraps.
Propelled me to the theater.
Let's go to Headquakes. Do you have a Headquake this week?
Oh, wait, I have to talk. I have some quibbles.
Oh, no, you haven't discussed your quibbles yet?
What's the rush to the headquake?
All right,
These are about
quibble.
some of the details, and one of the details I loved John Leguizamo, and,
Who did he play? I couldn't figure out who he was.
yeah, he was the blind, loyal servant, read slave of Odysseus, the aged man who can't see and who has an ancient dog with him, and part of the
Honest
story.
Wickham is that old? I couldn't believe that would he looked I thought that was, someone else. Okay, well, he was good.
He was great, and but, there's an element in the story that appears. It's a true part of the Odyssey is that, and it was a great way for the filmmaker to where Tom Holland could reveal it could reveal that Tom Holland that sorry? Matt Damon was Odysseus was his father and still alive as we see the reaction of the aging dog
Mm,
recognizing Odysseus, the tail
yeah,
wagging until it goes still and dies. And
yeah,
that's
that was
from
a
the
good moment.
Odyssey, and it was also a feature in a film called The Return with Ray Fiennes as Odysseus, and that unlike The Odyssey, The Return is focused only on Odysseus's, washing up on the shores of Ithaca and taking back his kingdom.
I didn't realize the dog was from, was actually, from the Odyssey itself.
Yeah. The other element I really loved was, it was an audio element, and it was when Odysseus would use his bow, he would pull the string and make it thrum consistently, so that when we have the final confrontation with the suitors and we see him pierce the aperture between all of the axes and
Are we giving away a lot, too
string the
much?
bow. Well, you know what? It's a pretty obvious ending. I mean, everyone knows how it's going to end, which is part of the beauty of the filmmaking. We know how it's going to end, unless you
Yeah,
haven't read the Odyssey.
I
Uh,
would.
so I thought that audio element of the thrum,
Yeah.
by the time he gets to Ithaca and we hear it, you're anticipating it and it feels good.
But those aren't quibbles. Where are your quibbles?
Well, here are the quibbles. Um, he carries 2 talisman with him. One is a gift from Penelope, and it's a rod-shaped black statue of Athena, and he also carries a chit. It's a cylindrical, same size as that image of Athena, that's little sculpture,
I thought
and
it's
it
gold.
represents, a ballot. He had
Mm.
recruited people for the trip to the Trojan War through ballot. Elliot Page as a young Sinon, Sinon, takes the ballot, Antinous cheats to avoid the war, and he carries both of these objects. I couldn't tell them apart. Maybe it's these baby boomer eyes of mine, but
What? I could tell them apart. They look completely different. First of all, the little statuesque that Penelope gives, Odysseus is gold. It's not black. They're different colors. Are you colorblind?
I think it got smudged during the 20-year journey. Maybe that's
Well, he
I
could always.
they look the same to me. I couldn't pick them out. I'm like, There's this talisman, and there's the talisman, this one."
You know, I didn't. That's a weird quibble. I didn't. My eyesight's no better than yours, and I could tell them apart. What other quibbles? Let's hear some more
My main quibble is
substantial quibbles.
I loved it through the end, and I think that the final confrontation with the suitors, that action sequence was just not great. It looked like a barroom brawl. It was
I agree
chaotic
with that. I do.
chaotic, and Robert Pattinson sounded like such a trite villain. "Get them! More weapons! Don't let
Yeah,
them go!"
I agree with that quibble. I thought that that fight scene I'd seen before so many times. I mean, there was almost everything in the film before that I hadn't seen before, and that fight I had seen many times, and I thought that could have been more interesting or
I thought it
better.
was done better in the movie Shane. And some certain, all these westerns, sometimes, the stranger rides into town and he's mysterious, but he's at heart he's good, and there's always a confrontation. I thought it was done better in the film Shane. If
Yeah, it's cathartic.
if you really wanna stay in the sword and sandal tradition, I think that the Ray Fine, the 2025 version with Ray Fine, that
Fine.
ending is pretty extraordinary. It's very well
No.
shot.
What's that film called
The
again?
The Return.
The Return. All right. I'm a big Ray Fiennes fan, so I'll seek that one out. But I think that last action sequence went on much too long and was that scene is it could have been borrowed from so many other films, recent films. So I was a bit disappointed in that, cathartic as it may be. But yes, I agree. I agree with that quibble. Any more quibbles?
that's those are my quibbles. That's it.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, I'm with you on I'm not even sure if I like the film more than you did at this point. Is that possible? Well, you liked it. You want to see it again.
I will go again. You know what? I'm not like you. You have a way of rapidly absorbing culture and formulating opinion. I need to marinate a few days, like a like
Well, get back to me in 4 days, and maybe I'll hate it.
a. I don't think you will.
No, I don't think I will either, but it's not like, but I sometimes rethink, initial impression. I don't think I'll rethink this initial impression. I think this, this is a very impressionable film. But I sometimes, yeah, can double down on, if I often give films the benefit of the doubt, and I've rewatched films that I did not like to see if maybe I was wrong, and I really I really find that I am. I usually confirm my initial impression. Not always. I have to give it a think to a film that changed my mind, but usually I find I'm pretty solid in my initial reactions to a film. So I think it'll stay positive on the Odyssey, which
You know what you're like? Your opinions, you're like a libertarian. You're always consistent.
wow, I've never been compared to a libertarian before, and I don't know how to take that. Um, yeah, that's the one thing we can possibly maybe like about libertarians is at least they're consistent, even if they're wrong. Is that fair?
Sure, I mean, I you can depend on a libertarian to be, pro drugs
Mhm.
and open markets, and maybe we have problems with that, but I can always depend on you to have a consistent
All
opinion
right. All
about
right.
work of art of some kind.
Yeah.
Headquakes,
Yeah. All right. Well, my headquarters, I'll be very quick about this one. They went to the Tate Britain. This is a London headquake. I was at the Tate Britain yesterday, and I went to the Whistler exhibit, James McNeill Whistler. I'm always been a big fan of his. And the one thing I was wondering if they how would they bring in the Peacock Room, and that's always fascinated me. The Peacock Room was a room that Whistler created for his wealthiest patron, Frederick Leland, here in London, and Leland was out of town when Whistler was doing all the work and running up the bills, and was outraged with how much his dining room had been changed without his permission, and he severed all connections with Whistler after that. It's a stunningly beautiful room. And Whistler painted peacocks on the wall, and it was to showcase Leland's ceramic collection. The room was sold after Leland died to the industrialist and art collector Charles Lang Freer in,
interesting.
19, in 1904. And it ended up in the Freer Gallery, a gallery that was instigated by Freer, mostly Japanese and Asian art. And it's in Washington, D.C., and you can visit it. I visited a couple of times, and the Peacock Room is there. It's immersive. You walk into it, and you feel like you're walking into Whistler's mind almost from the late 19th century. But in the exhibit here, the Tate Britain, they recreated it using photographic techniques that probably weren't even around 10 years ago. So they photographed the interior of the room that's in Washington, D.C., and they recreated it in the, in the exhibit, and you walk into it, and you don't know, you have to walk right up to the wall to see that it's flat, because there are these shelves with all these ceramics on it, and then you feel like you're in the room. It was very well done. So that's my headquake recommendation to anyone who's in the London area through the fall. It's the Whistler exhibit. So
Well
what's your head?
done. So highbrow. Wow.
I know this eyebrow. It's just good
Mine
art.
so I guess I have to match it with a lowbrow headquake. I was out at, my local cafe, and I saw the bartender serve a Miller High Life, pour out some of it, and pour in, an aperitivo called Aperol and a dash of lemon." And I said, what's that?" "And that's called a spaghetti."
Why? Why is spaghetti?
It's
That's
named after a character from a Adult Swim show. That character,
swim show? Swing what
Adult
did
Swim on Comedy Central.
okay.
The Tim and Eric Awesome Show, great job. And that character is called Spaghetti, who is a prankster and always has marinara sauce on his mouth. So it's, this sort of a poor man's aperitivo, which is, or Aperol Spritz is, a very sort of highbrow kind of drink. This
I
is
hope you tried it. Did
this
you
is the
try it?
poor man's version. I'm such a snob, I don't drink Miller High Life, so I
Oh, how can you yeah, we wanna hear how it tastes like.
well, I'll put that on my list.
Alright. You don't have to, but it would've been nice if you could report it that it tasted like, I don't know, apricots or something, so and had a nutty peanut buttery kind of flavor to it that was totally surprising. With a pinch of soy sauce, I
And
couldn't
a little
believe it.
like chicken too.
It tastes like chicken. Who doesn't want a beer that tastes like chicken? Wow, that's something someone's gonna invent
I
that.
would think that vegetarians would like that, wouldn't they? Like
Look
their
at you
analog
no,
vegetarian chicken meal.
no, because vegetarians can drink beer, I guess, without fearing that there's any meat in it. Is that
True.
right?
Well, isn't there yeast in it?
Yeah,
Wouldn't
well,
it?
that's not meat.
I know, but it's a living creature.
Oh gosh, alright. That could be our next
Vegans can't drink beer, I think. Maybe they
uh,
can.
poor vegans. They have such a circumscribed life. Well, should we wrap it up? I
Yes.
think should we sending people back to the cinema? And here's a good one to go back for. So at that, I am JB Miller in London.
And I'm Jim Jalamas here in Brooklyn, New York.
Bye bye.